What do you see above this? What's next?
You know, things always form. Fighters come and rise and create hype and build, so we'll see. I mean, there's many options. I have a trilogy fight in waiting also, which would be a big fight, but I have many fights. You know, anything attached to my name is a big contest. So I've been experiencing these big style fights for a long time.
Back to the daily grind. The channel's getting false flagged by triggered trolls, so make sure you subscribe to the new channel. Let's get to the MMA news. Conor McGregor has hinted at a possible trilogy fight with Nate Diaz after Floyd Mayweather versus Conor McGregor. And boy, if that does get scheduled, it will cause some ripples in the MMA world. Now, I will admit, that is the fight that makes the most sense as far as for Conor McGregor. It definitely has the biggest selling potential, will make the UFC and Conor McGregor the most money if they're able to get a trilogy fight for the lightweight title versus Nate Diaz at 155 pounds. Boy, I would love to see that. I know a lot of people would love to see that, and I do think that's the biggest fight, but there's one huge hurdle that has to be jumped for that to happen, and that is the interim champion that will be in place by the time Conor comes back. At UFC 216, Kevin Lee versus Tony Ferguson is scheduled for the interim title fight. Winner gets the interim lightweight championship, and what that means is when you're the interim champion, it means you only win that title because the current champion can't fight. But as soon as they come back, if you're the interim champion, you get the fight. With that being said, if Tony Ferguson beats Kevin Lee and wins the interim championship, how will Conor McGregor skip Tony Ferguson to fight Nate Diaz? How will the UFC finagle that? Now, it has happened one time. It is happening, but it's a super special scenario. Michael Bisping versus George St. Pierre is scheduled to take place, even though there's an interim champion, Robert Whittaker. But that interim champion was injured in his interim championship fight. Therefore, he was unable to fight the champion, Michael Bisping. So Robert Whittaker got a leg injury in his fight, which made it okay for him to be skipped. Now, unless Tony Ferguson or Kevin Lee get injured in their win, then Conor McGregor would be forced to fight them according to the interim title guidelines. I mean, why is there an interim title if it doesn't guarantee you the title shot? Just have two belts in each division? Like that, it would make a mockery of the sport if you have a healthy interim champion in Tony Ferguson or Kevin Lee, and then Conor McGregor still doesn't have to fight that person. Now, Conor McGregor does hold all the power. He does call the shots. He has even more power with Jon Jones out of the UFC now, or being most likely going to be stripped of his title and out for 4 years, most likely. So Conor McGregor is the only huge star, so you do have to think he would get to call his shots. He would get to choose who he wants to fight next. If Conor McGregor says, I want Nate Diaz or nobody, the UFC would give him Nate Diaz, you have to think. But what do you tell the interim champion? What do you tell the fans that are like, what the fuck is the point of having an interim champion if the champion still picks whoever they want to fight? Will the UFC have to tell him, listen, this is Conor McGregor, shut the fuck up, it's a special case? No, you couldn't do it, but Conor can. I mean, Conor McGregor could get ownership shares after his Floyd Mayweather fight. Maybe since he's an owner, he can say, hey, I mean, he's not going to be a majority owner, so he can't just call shots. But I mean, I don't know how they're going to get it done, but everything is pointing towards the Conor McGregor-Nate Diaz trilogy. The UFC released a Nate Diaz versus Takanori Gomi free fight recently. On UFC Fight Pass, they just put out a Conor McGregor-Nate Diaz 2 20 for 20. They're promoing Nate Diaz right now, and on top of this Conor McGregor fight, so it's almost like building up the trilogy. Conor McGregor came out and said, I've got a trilogy waiting on me on top of other options. I mean, he does know any fight his name is attached to will be big, but if he can get in the bad blood in the trilogy with Nate Diaz in a title fight on top of his return to MMA, I think we could see 2 million pay-per-view buys. Now, versus Kevin Lee or Tony Ferguson, I think we could see like 1.1, 1.2, 1.5 max, 1.5 high, just because of the rub from Floyd Mayweather Conor McGregor fight. I mean, but Nate Diaz versus Conor McGregor, I think, will just be that much more impressive, more buys, more money for the UFC. So I do believe the UFC and Conor McGregor would rather see Nate Diaz in there, but I'm just very, very interested to see how Conor McGregor jumps the hurdle of skipping Tony Ferguson or Kevin Lee if they win the title. Now, Kevin Lee did say if he wins the interim title, he's fine with Conor McGregor fighting Diaz. He'll defend the interim title versus Khabib if he has to. I mean, you like that from a champion. He don't care about all the shenanigans at the top. He's fine with having the interim belt and defending it like the real belt. But it would just make a mockery to me because it's like, are you kidding me? You have an interim champion fighting and defending a belt? You would have Kevin Lee defending, if he won, defending the interim title, and Conor McGregor defending the lightweight title, like the interim lightweight title and the lightweight title both being defended, but they're not fighting each other. That would be really I don't understand how I could wrap my head around that. But with that being said, Conor McGregor does have his eye on the Nate Diaz trilogy fight. Nate Diaz has been around. He is in Las Vegas. He is speaking out. So it is what it is. Let the hitters know what the fuck you tell me in the comments, dude.